years of crowded history since that last year of Queen Victoria's reign. She died in 1901, and all the kings and emperors of that time rode in her funeral procession, for there were many kings and emperors in those days. The Edwardian era, now regarded as the peak period of English magnificence. Women wore sumptuous and concealing clothes in this last stage of their political inferiority to men. Fashion was beginning to ring the changes more frequently, and the hostesses of Edwardian society set the standards. Over this legendary period presided the genial king, who entertained shooting house parties at Sandringham and contributed a personal share to the country's foreign policy by promoting the Entente Cordiale with France. Did I mention women's emancipation? The suffragette movement was afoot. Militant ladies were willing to go to jail, picket the House of Commons, chain themselves to railings in order to secure the vote, from which all the other equalities have flown. And that's less than 50 years ago. Think of it. And then the first great calamity burst upon us. We called it the Great War, because we never imagined there could be a greater. King George V was on the throne then. Foch and Haig were the two Allied commanders, Poincaré, the French president, on the left. David Lloyd George, the Prime Minister who saw it through to victory. And in the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles, the Allies imposed peace on Germany. The first 30 years of our period saw tremendous developments. To take the first and obvious one, the cinema. And in 1929, British Movietone News produced the first British newsreel in sound.
Presents to you, in natural sound and graphic action, the current events of the world.
One of the earlier stories was Mr. Ramsay MacDonald introducing members of his cabinet.
Movietone News and impressed the public suddenly with the fact that the newsreel was a document of history.
The members of the cabinet who have been chosen for very hard work, and because I believe the nation fully believes that they are perfectly competent to perform it.
The spread of socialism and the attainment of office by the Labour Party was the second great political development of the half-century, the women's vote being the first. Internationally, the League of Nations was in full career, though weakened by the abstention of America. The increasing wealth and influence of the United States was one of the marks of the period. Huge skyscrapers multiplied in New York. Business boomed. Vast fortunes were made on Wall Street. Then came a crash. Beginning in 1929 on Wall Street, a terrible slump hit America. It continued through 1930, and in 1931, to forestall a run on the banks, they were closed. In 1933, when the slump had about finished its course, Franklin D. Roosevelt, one of the great figures of the half-century, came into office with his New Deal. Does it all seem a long time ago? Is the Jubilee of King George V now ancient history? In 1935, the King celebrated 25 years of eventful reign.
Then suddenly, on January the 20th, 1936, the King died. Shall we ever forget the sorrow which his passing inspired? And we followed him to his tomb in St. George's Chapel, knowing that we had lost something great.
With Movietone's pictures, the whole nation was able to pay homage.
But to us, 1936 will remain the year of royal sorrow. After King George's death,
there followed the short reign of Edward VIII and the abdication crisis. The monarchy survived the shock, for it was a shock and threatened to divide the nation.
Edward VIII gave up the throne for the woman he loved, Mrs. Wallace Simpson.
and our King and Queen, who were crowned at Westminster in May 1937, so healed the breach as to make the apprehensions of that time now seem remote and fantastic.
Tone was there to record the coronation pictures of King George VI. And at Buckingham Palace, the two little princesses waved from the balcony.
Remember him? The name was Mussolini, and he started something. He founded a totalitarianism of the right, which he called fascism. He dreamt of building a new Roman Empire, so he went to war with Abyssinia. Mussolini succeeded in annexing Abyssinia and in killing faith in the League of Nations, but his chief accomplishment was in showing the way to another dictator. It's not difficult to remember him. Hitler must surely go down in modern history as its biggest object lesson. For 1939 could have been prevented in 1935 when he was allowed to reoccupy the Rhineland. Munich, where Britain and France purchased a little time by appeasement, time which did enable Britain to develop her Hurricanes and Spitfires. Mr. Chamberlain did what he could and at least ensured that Britain went into the Second World War, having done everything possible to preserve peace.
We regard the agreement signed last night and the Anglo-German naval agreement as symbolic of the desire of our two peoples never to go to war with one another again.
The newsreel cameras went to war.
Memories of the Second World War remain so vivid they don't require much stirring. They'll always be associated in our minds with Dunkirk, the Battle of Britain pilots, the Blitz, the convoys, the Western Desert. Normandy, with Monty and with Winston Churchill. But don't let us forget that Hitler had his moments too, and that the defeat of Nazism, the totalitarianism of the right, was a near thing. It was only accomplished by the maximum efforts of the three great powers and their allies.
Right up to the end, London and southern England had been under fire. London certainly had as much right as anywhere to celebrate victory, and London certainly did.
When the Western powers were celebrating victory, how could they foresee that their ally, the Soviet, would so quickly separate from them and carry differences to the point of Cold War? It's been the task of Mr. Attlee's Labour government, elected in 1945, to deal with these foreign problems. The first Labour government with an overall majority in the House of Commons, they've at last secured the power to put in operation the policies of socialism. Nationalisation has posed many new problems with which the second half of the century will have to grapple. Over the whole future broods the menace of the atom bomb, and it may be that civilization, having defeated the totalitarianism of the right, will be plunged into a desperate conflict with the same forces coming from the left. But moderate people will take heart from the one proud achievement of 1949, the success of the airlift. Strength, resourcefulness and perseverance enabled the Western powers to beat the blackmail of the Russians and keep Berlin supplied until the blockade was called off. These pictures of the aircraft regularly flying their loads into the heart of Berlin may provide us with the symbol of hope for the next 50 years. Typified by the comet, let aviation stand for all the other great advances which the past 50 years could show.
We pay tribute to all newsreels throughout the world. The effort put in by cameramen, sound recordists, film editors and all the backroom boys who worked on producing the film is best portrayed on the screen itself. At the Grand National in 1956, the Queen Mother's horse Devon Lock was in the lead, but it suddenly took a surprise leap just before the finish and was out of the race. ESB went on to win. In 1952, the race to save the Flying Enterprise, wallowing off the Cornish coast, on board Captain Carlson and his first mate Ken Dancy. The weather worsened and the valiant struggle to save the ship was all in vain. In the state of Washington, the Tacoma Bridge had a nickname. They called her Galloping Gertie, an engineering freak, which every time a gale blew, provided sensational newsreel pictures. That is, until one day the wind proved too strong. Disaster.
Scarcely 100 feet above ground, the giant airship with her framework encasing 7 million cubic feet of inflammable gas is being carefully maneuvered towards her hangar, when suddenly...
of Monte Cassino. The Benedictine monastery had been part of the Germans' defense line, holding up the Allied advance through Italy. The sinking of the battleship Barham.
Heavily, she was on her beam ends within 4 minutes. Then her after magazine blew up.
During the war years, Movietone added a touch of humor. Movietone News celebrates its golden anniversary with this final edition, a tribute to the newsreel personnel who have recorded history on film for 50 years. This is Movietone.